what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. And guys, I am super excited today because I get to talk about one of my all-time favorite teen comedies on 4K. I didn't think we would ever get here. I didn't think we would ever get to the point where we got to talk about Varsity Blues on 4K. This is the latest release from Paramount. This is due out on January the 9th, so I've got an early review copy to talk about and showcase with you guys today. So we're going to talk about the movie. It's a very important movie to me. I do want to talk about the film itself. We're going to talk about the transfer of the audio, special features, do a quick unboxing at the end compared to the Blu-ray, because there is a Blu-ray in here as well. Paramount seems to be going back and forth on that. It's like they release just 4K and then they'll release a combo pack with the Blu-ray and the 4K. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm happy they did it with Varsity Blues because it's such a great movie and I love it. Look, guys, before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I talk about physical media on this channel. If you haven't noticed, all that stuff there behind me, owning the movies that you love. If you like that kind of thing, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, comment down below. Did you grow up with Varsity Blues? This movie came out at just the right time for me. It came out at just the right time for me. I completely understand. Like, I feel like people that are younger than me by maybe 10 years, 5-10 years, people that are older than me by 5-10 years, they're not going to get the love that I have for Varsity Blues. But if you're in my age range, late 30s, you will understand completely my love for Varsity Blues. This is the movie that came around the same year that American Pie came out. She's All That. The teen movies were on a tear in 1999, 1998, the late 90s. Teen comedy, sex comedy, romance, dramas, teen angst movies, sports movies. Like, this is all of those in one film. This, to me, after watching it last night, I think it's the best. I think it's the best teen comedy of the 90s. So yeah, if you know, you know when it comes to Varsity Blues. Like, if you were around in this time, you know, I was 14 when this movie came out. So it just hit me at just the right time. Ali Larter in a whipped cream bikini hit me at just the right time. Take that for what you will. But yeah, I love this movie. I really love this movie. It's directed by Brian Robbins, which I didn't really pay attention, unless it was like Steven Spielberg or Kevin Smith or Tarantino. I didn't really pay attention who was directing what, but I got to looking at his filmography. He directed Good Burger. He directed Hardball with Keanu Reeves. He directed Ready to Rumble with David Arquette. He directed a lot of beloved films from when I was a teenager. So he's definitely, or Good Burger more so when I was a little kid. So he definitely did a lot of really cool movies in the 90s and the early 2000s that I thought was worth noting. So yeah, Brian Robbins does a really great job with this movie, though. I really honestly feel like this balances the humor, the drama, just so incredibly well. Better than any other teen party movie did at that time. I feel like American Pie definitely leaned more towards the comedy. She's All That was pretty comedic. It tried to be dramatic at times as well, but I feel like it got a little bit too cheesy. This, I feel like, is really that perfect balance. And it has some of the best characters. Like, I love everybody in this movie. How could you not love Billy Bob? How could you not love, you know, Paul Walker? He's the star quarterback. And he's kind of set up to not like him in the beginning, but he's such a likable, nice guy. Even when he gets injured, like, he doesn't blame anybody. He just takes it like a man and just lays back and watches James Vanderbeek take his spot. But you also got Tweeter, who just is the main source of the comedy. He's like the Stifler of Varsity Blues. Again, if you've seen American Pie but not Varsity Blues, he's like the Stifler of Varsity Blues. But Varsity Blues actually came out before American Pie hit. It actually came out in January of 1999, so it really is celebrating its 25th anniversary. But this movie, it's so much fun. You like all the characters. You're invested in all the characters. You're invested in the story. And when stuff gets real with Jon Voight, who's just a complete prick. But watching Jon Voight in this movie, like, the comparison to him and J.K. Simmons in Whiplash is definitely there. Like, and I don't know if J.K. Simmons like took any kind of inspiration from Jon Voight's character in this film of Coach Kilmer. But, and again, I haven't seen a lot of the sports movies that came out in the 80s and the 70s. Like, maybe, you know, Jon Voight took influence from them or whatever, but he really is that prick that just kind of manipulates his team into thinking that he's like the end all be all. He's like the god. Really, he's manipulated the entire town, because this entire town of West Canaan, Texas is obsessed with football. They eat, sleep, and breathe it. So this high school football team is really like all this town has. So they put everything into their kids that play football, into the coach, into the team. That's just everything to them. That's what this entire movie's about. It's about high school football. It's about it just taking over this entire town. You got, James Vanderbeek. He's the second string quarterback. You got Paul Walker. He's the star quarterback. Paul Walker gets injured about halfway through the movie, and then James Vanderbeek has to step in and take over. And James Vanderbeek is actually really good at football too and takes his spotlight. So it's just a good setup to the story. But I like this movie because you have all these situations and all these characters should fall into these tropes so easily, but they never do. Like James Vanderbeek is taking the spotlight away from Paul Walker, but that never becomes a thing. Like they're friends, and Paul Walker understands that that's just what he had to do. And you have little moments of drama between James Vanderbeek, Mox, and his girlfriend, who's played by Amy Smart. Amy Smart also in this movie. Lots of great actresses, hot actresses at the time. Amy Smart, Allie Larder. But none of the characters behave in like tropey ways. They all feel very fully realized and realistic within this world. Got a great soundtrack. Great quotable lines. I could quote this movie for days. I did quote this movie for days in high school. I love the scene where the old guys, the guy and the sheriff's hanging out at the bar, and they're talking about how they put their wangers on the glass at the Alana Club. I used to quote that all the time. America's Funniest Shots in the Nuts, where Tweeter nails that guy in the balls. You got Billy Bob dancing on the strip on the strip club stage. What? This is a strip club. I'm here to work, and he's like dancing around. I still remember like the trailer to this movie so vividly and so well. But so I don't want your life. There's that big moment, and everybody makes fun of that because that's like the big dramatic beats of the film, where like James Vanderbeek's almost trying to go for an Oscar with that. So it is kind of cheesy, but I love everything about this movie. Cheese and all. Is it a perfect movie? Am I saying this movie should have won an Academy Award? No, I'm not. But I do think it's a great teen comedy drama from the 90s that just perfectly encapsulates that time period, that moment in time, when I was 13 or 14. It just brings me back there. Sometimes, how music and movies, when you watch them, they just bring you back to that moment in time. So I feel like a teenager again when I watch this movie because it just takes me back. But getting into the actual 4K restoration here, this is a native 4K restoration from the original camera negative. You got Dolby Vision, you got HDR10, and I don't know, because I do have the Blu-ray, but I don't think I ever watched this Blu-ray, and I also don't think I ever owned this movie on DVD. So this may be the first time I've watched this on actual physical disc since VHS tape, because I watched the VHS over and over again. Like I said, I think I still have that. And I think all the other times I watched this movie were probably on cable or maybe a streaming service. So this is the first time I watched it on disc. Now, I did pop in the Blu-ray and kind of compare the two pictures. I'll say this. Sometimes when you pop in a 4K and you haven't seen the Blu-ray, at first glance, I have to kind of check myself sometimes because I didn't think it was the best 4K, but then when I actually go back and watch the Blu-ray, I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually a pretty good, upgrade over that original Blu-ray. So I have to kind of check myself sometimes if I haven't seen all the different formats, throughout history, because I love this movie, but I don't think I bought that DVD. So I feel like the last time I watched this in physical form was that VHS tape. And what I can say about this transfer is it looks really good. I think the HDR does a lot for those colors, like in particular in the football stadium, because all the games take place at night under these kind of blue tint lights. Not blue tint, but the whole arena kind of has this like bluish tint to it. And then the team's colors are blue. So you kind of have this blue hue over those moments. But what I noticed on the Blu-ray is it looked a lot bluer and just didn't look as natural. Now, when you put the 4K in, there's more range in those colors, and you could actually see the differences between, you could actually make out the contrast between the actual blue on the uniforms and the actual green of the grass on the football field, and then the stadium lights, and then everything. All the shadows just felt like they were aligned more realistically and just looked a lot more natural. So it just had a much more like natural, realistic look, how it would actually look if you were there. Whereas the Blu-ray just kind of looked a little bit unnatural. It's just had this real like bluish hue. So I think the 4K actually did a lot with that HDR, with that Dolby Vision to kind of give you the contrast between all the colors. Now I did find it to be a little bit inconsistent throughout. There were some moments, some scenes where I thought the picture was a little soft, not as crisp, not as clear as I would have liked it to have been, but for the most part, this 4K looks pretty damn great throughout, especially when you compare it to that Blu-ray. And just great contrast and definition and clarity throughout, with the exception of those softer spots. So I actually think this is a really good, solid upgrade over this Blu-ray. And I think if you've had this Blu-ray for a while and that's the only way you've been watching Varsity Blues, I think you're going to be pleased with this 4K picture. I don't think it's the best that I've ever seen. I don't think it's the best I've ever seen, but it is a very solid upgrade over that Blu-ray. Now, getting into the actual sound here, this is where we're going to have a little bit of a discrepancy, because Blu-ray.com stated, and I've got it right here, I'll put it up, you know, over myself talking, but Blu-ray.com did state in its announcement that this was supposed to have a Dolby Atmos track, and it does not. It has a 5.1 on English and French, and that is it. So it does not have any other tracks other than the 5.1, and they announced it on Blu-ray.com, and I probably announced it on the Physical Media Report as well, as having a Dolby Atmos track. Now, when I looked on the press release that Paramount sent me, they had nothing on that about this having Dolby Atmos, and there's nothing on the back here about this having Dolby Atmos. So I just think that this was a screw up by Blu-ray.com, and I don't think this was ever supposed to have Dolby Atmos. Now, when you look on Blu-ray.com, the actual specs, it doesn't say anything about Dolby Atmos as well. So this just has that 5.1, which is a little disappointing. I feel like this movie, like with those like game moments and everybody's hitting each other and the music's blaring, I feel like it would have sounded really good with that Dolby Atmos track, but I'm just listening to it on a soundbar anyway that kind of simulates that Dolby Atmos and the 5.1. I've got the subwoofer, and you know, everything sounded good to me. I had no issues with the sound throughout. Everything sounded clear and I could pick up on everything. Like I said, the soundtrack's great. You got the Foo Fighters, you got freaking AC/DC, tons of great bands from that era in this film that you'll be able to recognize when you watch it. So sound-wise, I didn't have any issues, but I did want to clear up that Dolby Atmos thing because this does not have it, but Blu-ray.com did state that it did. So getting into the actual, unboxing here real quick, I'll go ahead and show a little bit of an unboxing. I love that they just went with the regular poster for it. I mean, you don't have to go too flashy here. This is a great cover. I think this was actually the VHS cover as well. You know, the truck with all the characters in the back, Tweeter, you know, sitting on the hood of the car, which is super iconic and awesome. So I love that they went with just the original poster for the front of this 4K. I think it looks great. You got the 20th anniversary at the top. You got all the images on the back and the specs and the special features and the synopsis. Take it out of the slipcover. And you got all the same stuff on the back with the casting list, and then you got the same image on the front as well. So, I mean, look, I got to give credit to Paramount because we're getting Warner Brothers just doing all this new like artwork that nobody likes. At least Paramount, for the most part. Every now and then they'll give us a Rosemary's Baby, but for the most part, they're just doing the original poster art and some kind of a variation. I think that's pretty cool. This does have a digital code. You also have the Blu-ray, and you have the 4K. All the special features are on the Blu-ray, and the audio commentary with the director, and I believe some of the cast is in that as well, is on the Blu-ray. But the audio commentary is actually not on the 4K, which I actually do have a little bit of an issue with, because if I want to watch this movie with the audio commentary ever, I don't listen to a lot of commentaries anyway, but if I did want to watch this with the audio commentary, I don't want to watch the Blu-ray. I want to watch the 4K because the 4K looks the best, and I would like to listen to the commentary on the 4K, but the commentary is not on the 4K. It is just on the Blu-ray. So I think that that's kind of a miss for Paramount on this release for sure. But getting into the actual special features, there's nothing new here in terms of special features. I think a couple of these were from the original DVD release, and I think a couple of these were from the Blu-ray release from 2009. Now, maybe they're all from the DVD, but the reason I think that at least one of them is from 2009, the Blu-ray release that came out, is because you had the special feature with the guy that played Billy Bob talking about how he lost a bunch of weight after the movie, and it's 10 years later. So that would make it 2009. So I think that might be a Blu-ray special feature, maybe the other one. you know, the QB game analysis where they get the, you know, the actual football players and they kind of analyze the game moments in the movie. So that's pretty cool. There are some really good features here, but again, it's nothing new. I would say it's probably close to 45 to 50 minutes of special features, making of, and interviews with the cast and stuff. I just, you know, I keep saying it. I keep hammering it home. I'm going to keep saying it. Give us something new with these releases. Like, we're paying good money for this stuff. Give us a new interview with James Van Der Beek, you know, or give us a new commentary or something. Like, studios are starting to do that a little bit. I think Paramount's given us some new stuff before, but give us a couple new features, couple new 5-minute interviews. And, you know, I won't bitch. I won't complain. Just give us a couple. Tweeter and Billy Bob would want you to give us new features. So give us new features. I'm sure Ali Larder would have answered the call to give us a 5 to 10 minute special feature on how she applied the whipped cream bikini. I'm sure she would be kind enough to lend her services there. And speaking of the whipped cream bikini in 4K, oh my God, guys, that's worth the price of admission alone. The whipped cream bikini in 4K delivered, absolutely delivered in 4K. So I'll just say that. But guys, that's my thoughts on Varsity Blues on 4K. I love this movie, so I had to talk about it. Maybe there's going to be a lot of people that don't care about this release, but I do. And I think the ones that do care about this movie definitely wanted me to talk about it, because I love this film and I'm so happy it got this 4K treatment, because it really does look good. And if you're a fan of Varsity Blues, I think you are going to be happy with this release. You can get it right now for $20.98. I will link it down below in the description. But thank y'all so much for watching my review of Varsity Blues. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below your thoughts on the film, and you know, follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.